He'll be logging on now, so if we can bring him up as a panelist. And thank everyone for our early birds for coming on early. We will be starting shortly.
Marie Claire, can you bring Sonia in and make her a co-host so she can help?
Okay, everyone, it is 6 o'clock. We are still waiting for people to come in, and we're waiting for one more panelist, and we are going to get started. We will be streaming live on YouTube. So we are actually going to that and we start recording, and we will get started meeting. Thank you all so much for being patient. Some of you even saw us trying to. All right. Thank you all so much for your patience. We're going to wait a couple minutes and we're going to get started. This is, we will encourage all of you. If you have a question, there is a question and answer feature. If you can put your questions in the question and answer feature, that will be good for us. That way we can make sure that your questions are answered. And we do recognize that people are starting giving people time to get in before we start. And one of our major speakers is we're trying to get him in and bring him up. So once we get him as a panelist, we're going to get started. And again, for those of you that are coming in, as we have people steadily coming in, we have added Okay, can we give Miss Fiona the ability to, can we add Miss Strat back as a panelist, please?
Can you repeat that?
Miss Threat, it was panelist.
Yes.
Add her back as a panelist. Okay, and also if you could look for Congressman Hoyer and bring him up. Sorry, everyone, with all of this, it takes a little bit of technology will slow you down a little bit. So we're waiting for the congressman to come in and we're gonna get started. And Marie Claire, do we see Congressman? I don't see him either. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will be starting shortly. We are waiting for our panelist to arrive.
Okay, the time is 6:05, so we will get started while we're waiting our panelists to come in. I'm going to go ahead and get started so that as we're recording, we do have a couple of people that are speaking today, and we just might have to go out of order until we get the congressman on. But welcome you all. Um, um, I just wanted to thank you all so much for coming. We at the County Council realize that many of you all have faced layoffs and or possible layoffs or have been laid off. We have reached out to many who have told us that they are concerns. And so what we're going to do today is allowing people to get information. And part of this information is number one, what is being done on a congressional level. We have a speaker from the American Federation of Government Employees that is going to go over what they're doing. They are in the middle of litigation. They're advocating on your behalf. Many of you, even of those of you who are not in the union, they're advocating on your behalf. So we want to make sure we get through that. And then we have some resources that we think will be beneficial for the residents here. And we have Health Connect on, and hopefully we will have somebody from Employ Prince George's that will be coming on. And that would allow you all to get information. If you have been laid off, we ask you to if you live in Prince George's County and you've been laid off mostly in District 6, I would ask that you fill out a form, and I would ask my staff to put the form in the chat. So we will have somebody put it in the chat. But this is for anybody here who has been laid off. Right now, we know that we have over 73,000 residents who are federal government employees, and that does not even include those that are contractors. Because of that, we're trying to make sure that we can do as much as possible to assist. We do know that if we do not do anything, it could impact the county and this whole area overall. We are also aware that there is concerns about now we might not get the FBI. There are other federal agencies that we thought would be relocating in Prince George's County, and we know that that is at risk. So we do understand that there's many burning questions. What we ask you to do is to put all your questions in the actual question and answer. We will have somebody there that will be reading through this questions, as this is because of the way this is organized. It is very much of a panelist, a webinar. So with webinar, you are not allowed to ask particular questions, but you can just ask questions in the question and answer section, and then we can go from there. So I would like to turn it over. Our first speaker was supposed to be the congressman, but the congressman is trying to get in. And have we seen the congressman yet? Okay, so we haven't seen them yet. So right now, what we're going to do is go ahead and bring up the American Federation of Government Employees, which is been one of the biggest fighters in being one of our biggest fighters fighting this issue in the courts, advocating on behalf of workers. And we have Fiona, who is from American Federation of Government Employees, also known as AFGE. I would note that the Otis Johnson, the vice president, was supposed to speak tonight, but we will keep his family in prayer. There was an emergency in his family. So now we are bringing on Fiona from AFGE so that she could talk about what they are doing on the federal level to protect workers. And of course, like again, after each group, we will have opportunity for question and answer. And then you would do it. Yes, everyone is all muted. And because this is a webinar, we ask that you put all of your questions in the question and answer section, and we will read them out so that all of them can be answered. So we'll turn it over to Fiona. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting AFGE to speak tonight. My name is Fiona Kohrman. I am a legislative representative at the American Federation of Government Employees. AFGE National Vice President, Otis Johnson, was very sorry that he was not able to attend. Everything AFGE members do benefits the American public. We are fighting for every federal employee, not just our members. The Maryland delegation has been the bedrock of support for the fight that we're in for federal workers. All of you have families around the country, and we invite you to be reaching out to your family and your friends, urging them to reach out to their members of Congress on both sides of the aisle with some of the messaging that I'll be talking about this evening. And everything I say reflects our AFGE legislative department. We're fighting both in the courts and on Capitol Hill. So first, I'd like to start with some overview of what is happening in Congress. This year, we can expect Republicans to get rid of federal workers' rights, benefits, and protections. Specifically, as the Republicans begin the budget and reconciliation process, we expect to see changes to healthcare and retirement benefits, FERS and FEHB, at a minimum, to pay for the 2017 massive tax cuts. In Congress, as Mr. Hoyer, who will be joining us, knows, AFGE is fighting to protect federal pay, benefits, and rights that Title V provides. AFGE legislative representatives, like myself, are meeting on both sides of the aisle in both the House and Senate with as many members of Congress as we possibly can, urging them to stand up for federal workers' rights and DC government workers' rights and benefits at a time when we know that these will be used as offsets to help pay for the tax cuts that the administration wants extended. I'd like to reiterate, we will work with anyone, Democrat, Republican, Independent, to defend the integrity of the civil service and the dignity of federal employees and their ability to serve the American public without fear or favor. Next, I want to briefly address AFGE's fight in the courts. AFGE has been a lead plaintiff in several lawsuits in federal court, challenging the administration's executive orders on several different issues, ranging from deferred resignation, violation of personal data, Schedule F, and probationary employees, just to name some of the most prominent cases. Even as I speak tonight, our general counsel is in federal court in San Francisco, challenging the executive order, on probationary employees. We at AFGE, as everyone on this call, are deeply concerned about what is happening, but we're also committed to taking on this existential challenge we face with confidence, a clear head, and unrelenting energy. I'm happy to take any questions, and those questions that I'm not able to answer, I'm happy to put my information in the chat and write the questions down and get answers back ASAP. Thank you all so much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Fiona, can you go over your litigation and what's going on? Just go over, give people more detail. That seems like a little more, people are looking for something a little more than like a prepared statement. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I, because I'm not in the general counsel's office, I just want to make sure that I'm accurately reflecting everything that that our litigation is working on. There's several different cases, and so I'm happy to just go over more broadly that we are in. I mean, right now, as I said, our general counsel's office is in court right now, opposing the executive order on probationary employees. But I have a memo that I can put in the chat with more information on the status of the litigation, just so that I am accurately reflecting exactly what is going on that. So give me just 1 second. I'm happy to take another question or just put myself on mute just for 1 minute.
Okay, and of course, while you're doing that, I think, is it only the probationary? What else is there? Are there other issues that you're fighting so people can understand what's going on?
Absolutely, yeah. So the probationary employee litigation that is being challenged right now is happening just as we speak in the federal courts in San Francisco. But the AFGE legal team is in the process of filing numerous lawsuits with other organizations and other unions on the deferred resignation, on the violation of personal data, DOJ's access to personal data both at Treasury and the Department of Labor, on the Schedule F order to try to convert federal employees to at will, and then the probationary employees. So those are just, it's a broad overview, but just give me 1 second and I can pull up more information.
Okay, yeah, because we need some details. A lot of people want to, a lot of folks here are kind of dealing with anxiety here, so we need something that gives more detail about what's going on. And so I definitely, while you're doing that, there's some other questions popping up. And I know we're asking you some other questions. We do also want to know what you all are doing legislatively to address this issue. Like, what is your, since you are in the legislative office, what is the legislative thing? And we ask people, please don't raise your hand. If you have a question, please put it in the chat and we will read it. And I did tell people we're not doing open questions because of this is a webinar form, because of the number of interests. We're asking people to type their questions, and we want to read all of the questions out. So we please don't need anybody to raise your hands.
Thanks so much. So I can start with litigation and then move on to legislative, if that's okay.
You can switch over to legislative and we can come back to the litigation later. So if you want to go over the legislation, we would like to know, like, what actively is AFGE doing at the congressional level with legislation? What are you all doing to represent workers?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So it's a multi-pronged effort. The Saving the Civil Service Act is a piece of legislation that we are urging members of Congress to sign on to, and I'm happy to put that legislation in the chat. And that would fight back against Schedule F. Further, as the appropriations and budget process is just beginning now, we are working with members of Congress on both sides of the aisle in the House and the Senate to urge them to immediately stop the DOJ from terminating employees. As we get to the March 14th deadline, we are strongly urging members of Congress to do everything they can to ensure that federal employees can remain in their jobs and remain serving the American public. We are also in the process of urging members of Congress, as the House and Senate passed their versions of the budget this week, and as they move forward through developing reconciliation instructions, we're urging members of Congress as vocally as possible to not use any healthcare or retirement benefits cuts to pay for the 2017 tax cuts. And then beyond that, what we're asking members of Congress to do is amplify AFGE's messaging to immediately stop firing federal employees through amplifying AFGE's social media, through putting out press releases, visiting federal facilities. And we are trying to mobilize our members to meet with as many members of Congress at home and in Washington, D.C. to be amplifying these messages.
Thank you so much. So I think what we're going to do now is quite pivot, Fiona, because we did get the congressman is actually on with us now. So what we're going to do, give you time to get, if you could get those cases, you get some information on those cases for us, or if you all have somebody that can just do, so you can go over those, and that will be good for us to come back to. Okay. All right. Congressman, we've been waiting for you. We're glad that you're able to join us today. You got to unmute. How do we unmute him?
Got it.
Okay, we got
I'm
you.
unmuted.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We have so many people with burning questions, and you've been our fighter, so we appreciate you.
Well, Walla, I think Fiona probably has some answers because she's following very closely really where the action is right now, and that's in the courts. The Congress, frankly, is absent without leave and absent without reason. We're not doing anything. We're not having hearings while the administration totally undermines the balance between the Congress and the executive. We don't believe they can do legally much of what they're doing, and certainly not eliminating effectively an agency without the Congress approving. They keep sending out these notices, starting with the first notice, which said to 2 million civilian employees, if you want to leave, you can leave, and we'll pay you for 5 months, 6 months, and you don't have to come to work. An absurd order. Had it been followed out, it would have shut down government entirely and made us very, very susceptible to attack by our enemies and chaos and crisis here at home. So I know the folks on the call with us, Walla, and I want to thank you very much for having this. I want to thank you, the council, for making sure that we do all we can to fill in temporarily, obviously, for federal employees who are being traumatized. And of course, Walla, I'm sure everybody on this call knows this is intentional. Russell Vought, who is the OMB director and who was the OMB director under Trump's first term, his intention is to make it so hard on federal employees that they walk off the job, don't come to work, and are perceived as villains. Nothing could create more inefficiency, more chaos in government, less attention on the duties that we've assigned to these federal employees than doing exactly what Elon Musk has done and with the president's directions. So it is incredible contradictory action that he has taken he being Musk and Trump, which is undermining the effectiveness and efficiency of government, not only for those that are closed down or taken off the job or fired or laid off, whatever the term they use, they are the ones who remain fearful and focused on what's going to happen to them. This is unprecedented. I've been in the Congress 44 years, Walla, as you know, and this has never, ever happened before. Now, we've shut down the government 3 times, and it's interesting, and everybody on this Zoom call needs to know the 3 times most recently, 95 and 96, 2013, and 17 and 18, the 3 times this has happened, or 18 and 19, I should say, it has been under Republican leadership. This is a policy of theirs. This is a plan of theirs. This is not by happenstance that government's going to be shut down. We are now about 2 weeks away from the government running out of authorization to spend money for anything, theoretically. And again, it's the policy of the Republican Party to traumatize the government, demonize the government. Do we want to all get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse? Absolutely. There's not a single person I know who wants to defend having waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, what they call waste, fraud, and abuse is sometimes very good policy. Let me give you an example. In USAID, that they've shut down, America is feeding some starving children and families, particularly in Africa, but in other nations as well, where that effort is creating a very positive image of America. That is, according to a number of the generals in the Department of Defense, the more we do that, the less we'll have to buy weapons, the less turmoil we'll have in the world. But in any event, I know the federal employees on the phone or their families or their friends want to hear what they can do. Now, I will say, and then I'll turn it back to you without going through a lot of information that I have, and we'll maybe have questions on those. The courts are now our first line of defense. And very frankly, to this time, we've had a pretty good record, including with the Supreme Court. The Office of Special Counsel, the head of that was fired and went to court. Lower court ruled that they couldn't do that, and the Supreme Court sustained. Now, that is just what we call a temporary restraining order. So it's not permanent. It's not a final decision. But that was a decision by a substantial majority of the Supreme Court. So it gives us some hope that the court is going to sustain the law and find that what Trump and Musk are doing and the administration is doing is inconsistent with the law, inconsistent with the separation of powers, and inconsistent with the efficiency and effectiveness of government, and insufficient to protect our employees who have been hardworking, patriotic Americans working to make America better every day.
Thank you so much, Congressman. There are some follow-up questions that I know people have, and I just wanted to just pose them to you to see your concern, your response, and whatever you can provide to us. So there's a little confusion about independent agencies, and just sort of, has there been the discussion of the authority of somebody like Trump to be able to dismantle an independent agency?
Absolutely, there's been discussion. No, there's no determination. As I say, all of these orders that we've had at this point in time, and Fiona, correct me if I'm wrong, have been temporary. There's not been a final order yet from the courts directing the president to do something that actually, that's not true. They've directed the president to do some things. And unfortunately and sadly, there's some question as to whether he's going to obey that. He has made disparaging comments, which he always does about the court and about the court's authority. And Musk has made very definitive statements that if we pay attention to court orders, we're going to lose our democracy because it's going to be judges who are deciding these issues, not elected officials. That's wrong. What judges do is not make the law, they apply the law and make a judgment as to whether or not the executive department, or for that matter, the legislature is following either the Constitution or the law. So right now, that the answer to your question is a final determination has not been made, because a final determination, the president and the administration are going to take all of his judgments to the Supreme Court, which is his modus operandi. But we've had, I want to stress, and Fiona, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, we've had some positive judgments to this day.
Right.
But we haven't had definitive judgments. So that's why people are still worried, while I'm still worried, and why we're still fighting to make sure that the law is applied and the protections that civil service has, and the ability of Congress, not the executive, to determine whether agencies should be shut down, eliminated, or expanded is the Congress's judgment, not the president's.
Thank you so much. And that's helpful. And to be honest, I do think that we all need to understand we are uncharted territory. We have a president that does not follow rules. So when people are saying, how can he do this? It's like he's doing something he's not authorized to do. So the second, Fiona, I did pin you up if you wanted to say anything. In addition, I do have some follow-up questions for the congressman, but if you wanted to chime in, just let me know. And so the next question is about Musk. Now, we know that Elon Musk is not authorized is he an employee? What is his role? And how is someone who, I mean, I know when I worked in the federal government or even worked for you, the congressman, I mean, we had to go through all types of clearance to get the job. So so what has been done about the discussion about Musk and his role in the government?
To my knowledge, Musk has gone through no clearances other than the president designate him as a special employee and given him certain, I think, secret clearances by authority of the president, not by vetting.
Got it. Okay. And then for the Doge, there is question what authority does Doge have? Because I didn't see any passage of any legislation to.
Well, Doge has no authority under under law. It exists through executive order. It exists through the president's assigning to it certain duties. Now, frankly, the subcommittee of which I'm the ranking member on the Appropriations Committee has authority over the White House budget, and Doge. I'm going to be urging the chairman of my subcommittee to have a hearing, including having Musk come before us and a presidential representative of the administration indicating specifically what Doge can and cannot do. But at this point in time, for all intents and purposes, Trump has given Doge blanket authority and blanket direction to downsize government very, very substantially, apparently including, they think, eliminating agencies. And that, of course, we believe the Supreme Court has said is definitely not the law.
Okay. That's good to know. And I do think that if we do know that a lot of these cases are moving to the Supreme Court. So I do think for people on, we will have some follow-up with lawyers, just lawyers, to discuss this, because we do think that's something that everybody needs to hear. So there's a big discussion about pensions. We have a lot of retirees that live in the county that are on this call, and they want to know what is going to happen. Is there any threat to their pension as Doge is acting in under this administration?
Well, Fiona, I'm sure has a view on that, but my view is at this point in time, there is no adverse effect on pensions. That is to say, there's been no action that I know And I think contractually, the president certainly can't do that. If there were any change in pensions, that has to be by law.
Okay.
Fiona,
And
do you
then-
agree on that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Fiona, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Representative Hoyer is exactly correct. We are also monitoring very closely the possible threat that we foresee for oversight reconciliation instructions to possibly target FERS and FEHB, federal employee retirement and health insurance benefits, as an opportunity to pay for the 2017 tax cuts. So that is one of the highest priorities that we're working on, to urge members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, in both the Senate and the House, to object any use of funds from those federal employee benefits to pay for the 2017 tax cuts.
Okay.
Fiona, I agree with Fiona, but
Mhm,
presumably
mhm.
that would have to be prospective. In other words, it could not affect, I don't think, pensions that were already being drawn and computed on the basis of the contributions that people had made, the number of years they served, their highest three, et cetera. And there's Republicans have been a lot of talk about changing that, but they have to change that by law. But I don't believe that it would be sustained to change pensions already being paid under the formulas that were available at the time they retired.
Exactly, yeah. And I just putting my legal hat on, for those who are receiving pensions, they could not touch that. And if they did, there is ERISA law that prohibits that. So the question is, what happens for those who are retiring or for the future? And that is, we all saw that in during recession, people dipped into pension funds, and we hope that they would not dip into the pension fund to fund anything else. So that's a good point. There's been discussion about shutdown. I thought, so Congressman Hoyer, can you guide people on what will happen with a shutdown? Because that has been the discussion, is maybe D-Day will be a shutdown that will lead to a lot of terminations.
Well, I mentioned there have been three major shutdowns. The longest was 31 days, or 35 days, excuse me. And that was in 1995, then 2013 and 14, and in 2018 and 19. That's when we won the majority, and it took us 31 days to get the government back open. What does that mean? I think most of the folks, unfortunately, on this call have probably experienced a shutdown. Not all of them. The new employees will not have, because when we were in charge for 4 years, there were no shutdowns. The threat today is there has been no agreement on how to fund the government going forward after March 14th. March 14th is the day on which the continuing resolution, which is the federal employees know too well, unfortunately, because they're an indication of failure to get our work done either on time or correctly. Continuing resolution simply says we'll spend at last year's level going forward until we pass a full funding of all the departments of government. Now, the federal fiscal year runs from October 1 through September 30th. We are now in fiscal year 25 budget cycle, which ends on September 30th of this year. What we should do, but apparently the Republicans are unable to do it, is to pass appropriations for each one of the agencies and departments. However, because they can't agree among themselves, they're talking about doing a CR for the balance of the year. There'll be some changes in that that they're discussing. I don't know exactly what there are, but there are always some what we call anomalies is the technical term, which simply means making some adjustments that are necessary that were not in the previous year's bill that need to be accounted for. But so we're 2 weeks away from a shutdown. And what is a shutdown? A shutdown means that so-called non-essential employees, which is a heck of a thing to say to employees, you're non-essential, because it's not really mean non-essential. It means unrelated to security issues, which would adversely affect the safety and health of people if they didn't go to work. Many of the, for instance, employees at the security agencies, the Department of Defense, National Security Agency, CIA, DEA, things of that nature. But most employees would be prohibited, even if they wanted to go in and work voluntarily, knowing that they weren't getting paid. They couldn't do that under the rules of a shutdown. So that would mean a lot of employees would not be able to work, and the employees who work getting paid may be in question as well, which is ironic and obviously wrong. So hopefully we'll get resolution to this one way or the other. The worst thing would do is shut down the government. The next worst thing is just doing it by a CR for the balance of the year, because that would damage every agency of government who's planned, who submitted a budget, and in many cases, in the Senate, they've approved much of the funding, but they haven't passed any of the bills. So shutdown is the absolute opposite of what DOGE is trying to do, make government efficient. It shuts it down. It makes it the least efficient it could possibly be. And it damages federal employees. And more importantly, from my perspective, damages the federal, it damages everybody that the federal employee is serving. Particularly, we have a lot of IRS employees. They've just riffed 6,700 employees at the very time when the workload on IRS is the greatest, so that people aren't going to get phone calls answered. They're not going to get their returns perhaps as quickly as they would like, particularly if they're getting money back, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to call and ask questions. How do I do this? Or how do I do that? There won't be anybody to answer the phone. Or if there are some people, the waits will be hours and hours. And people will be angry, and properly so.
Okay, this is bad news. Now, Congressman, can you explain sort of why? Because some people are just confused. Why are we, as Democrats, or as those who are Democrats, why are we not able to do anything? What is the limitation? Can you explain the limitation so people understand? So at this point, I understand the confusion because everyone's like, well, why is these things happening? Nothing can stop it. And we could
Are you asking me?
so people can understand where we are in Congress, House, and Senate with numbers, and it, because
It's a pretty simple answer, because people elected Republicans to be the majority in the House and the majority in the United States Senate. And they are disinclined. As I said, under Republicans, we've had 3 major shutdowns, and I told the dates on that. Trump has said in the past, the president said, shutting down is maybe a good thing to do. Shutting is a terrible thing to do, a stupid thing to do, an inefficient and costly thing to do. It costs billions of dollars for no return. You've got people, and invariably, we do what is the right thing to do, Republicans and Democrats vote for, to make sure that people who are laid off for a week or 2 or 3 or 4 furloughed or whatever you want to call it, not able to work, that we make sure that they're reimbursed because they were not able to work through no fault of their own. So it is a reality that the Republicans have pursued that policy on 3 major occasions over the last 30 years, and that right now we don't have an agreement, and they don't think apparently making government inefficient, because that's what they're doing. They're laying off people whose work we need being done. So that's why this has happened. The other reason it's happened is because, frankly, the Congress has not been working, and it hasn't been working to pass appropriation bills in regular order, as the law and the budget requires us to do. And we bring ourselves to these times when we're at crisis. And frankly, the Republicans, again, it sounds very partisan, but the Republicans have not agreed among themselves how they're going to do the budget. The Senate and House Republicans have not agreed. So it's not a question of Democrats not wanting to get to an agreement, but the Republicans haven't put something on the table that's acceptable. Now, that House did pass a budget suggestion 2 days ago. Now, I say suggestion because the Senate has to pass a bill, which it has. They have to come to agreement, however, and send it to the president. They don't send it to the president. The budget does not go to the president. It's an agreement between the Senate and the House in the same form. And really what it does, it sets the spending levels. What we call discretionary spending. That is that we make decisions on an annual basis. So that's all it does. It makes what's the upper level of spending? And until you get that, the Appropriation Committee doesn't know what they have to spend.
Okay. Well, this is dim news. I see we are going by the questions here. So guys, I know everybody has so many questions. This is hard. The biggest one that has been hitting around is Medicaid, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. What is being done by that? We've been getting word that they're going to gut it, that they're going to do. So do you have a forecast of what we are to look for in Medicare, Medicaid, and in those funding for those social programs?
Well, again, here you have rhetoric not being replicated by policy. The budget that was passed requires the Energy and Commerce Committee, which has authority over Medicaid and Medicaid in some ways, Ways and Means has some authority there as well. But the Energy and Commerce has been directed to find $880 billion of cuts. Now, the president says, I don't want Medicare cut. I don't want Medicaid cut. I don't want Social Security cut. But there is asking the Energy and Commerce to get $880 billion of savings, which is largely focused on funding a tax cut for the wealthiest people in America. That's the irony, because the people who are going to be hurt are the people who aren't wealthy by this. By particularly a cut in Medicare or Medicaid. And now the president says again, he doesn't want to cut any one of those three. Speaker Johnson said on TV yesterday or this morning, I forget which it was, that they were not going to cut those. But there is little belief that the committee that has been instructed to save $880 billion could possibly do so within the ambit of its authority to get the $880 billion without touching one or more of those, either Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. And Medicaid is more vulnerable.
Oh, yeah. I think this is just frustrating for all of us because it's such dim news now. What about the protection for veterans? We do see that they've been firing people at the Veteran Administration. So veterans are concerned of is there any protection, or what is the forecast for our
Not only are veterans having a problem on healthcare, but in these rifts and the firings, there are a lot of veterans who have been fired.
So no
And they were, of course, they have preference. We want to take care of our veterans, but DOGE has simply been affecting across the board without looking at who these people are, what they do, or how long they've been with the government. And again, the longer they've been, the more illegal this is, because they are protected and they have certain rights to have their cases considered by appeals board, the Merit System Protection Board, the Office of Special Counsel, and further protections. So they have not cared about that. So veterans are being hurt. On veterans health care, they have laid off people at the Veterans Administration. They've laid off people who are answering questions for veterans. We know veterans need to be responded to in a timely fashion. Some of them are sick, some of them are very, they're elderly, and they need to have accurate and prompt responses. DOGE is undermining that by riffing and laying off people in the Veterans Administration who do exactly that, answer questions and facilitate veterans getting the benefits to which they're entitled and deserve. Now, that's not the, Walla, I mentioned IRS, CIA, they sent the letter to CIA agents who are protecting our national security. And by the way, obviously, we don't want their names disclosed. They're undercover agents. And they sent the letter saying, if you want to resign with pay for the next 6 months, 7 months, you can do so. He sent it to the CIA without making a determination who's critical to our national security and the safety of our country and the safety of our people. Just, it's difficult to comprehend the irresponsibility that was displayed in that effort, because it went to NSA as well, National Security Agency. It went to other agencies, and they want to cut defense by 40%, they say, over the next 5 years, 8% a year. So we'll see what happens. But again, I want to stress to everybody who has legitimately great concerns, we believe much of what they're doing is illegal, inconsistent with law, and we believe it will be overturned. I talked to a veteran yesterday, been with the government some period of time. He's in a national security position and is a veteran, and he was laid off, not for cause, not because he wasn't doing his job, but because they wanted to get rid of people across the board in a certain role.
Congressman, we know we're wrapping up. We know you got to get to one more meeting. I just want to just one more question. Most people want to know what to do now. What just if you could just close up, what are Democrats doing to protect us? Or congressional members are doing to protect us now? What is the plan, and what should we be doing? Because at this point, some of us are feeling hopeless.
Well, first of all, Walla, I know you're doing something. The county council is doing something. The county is doing something to try to have some stopgap supplements to whatever benefits may be available. Now, if they're riffed or fired, they have availability of unemployment insurance. The problem is those who resigned because they resigned, they're not entitled to unemployment insurance. But I want to congratulate you for doing some stuff. What are Democrats doing? We're raising hell every day, everywhere, every place that we can do that. And we are strongly supporting the folks who are the unions. Fiona is with AFGE, American Federation of Government Employees, the largest federal union, 800,000 strong. They're in the forefront of this fight. They're on the front lines. An organization called Democracy Forward, in the leadership of this woman named Prettyman, who is a lawyer, leading an effort and filing literally tens of scores of cases. And as I said at the beginning, we have won some temporary initial victories. For the most part, haven't lost very many. We've lost, some temporary issues, but first of all, we need to make sure that people can make it through. we can't get any bills passed to do that. The chair of the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee is trying to do some things, get it in a bill to give some temporary relief for people. I doubt that will happen, either in the Senate or in the House. But I know the county and the state, Jazz Lewis has got a bill in, to try to help federal employees at the state level as well, with some bridge payments that will supplement their unemployment. But you and I both know that's not going to get much relief for an awful lot of people.
Do you have a bill that maybe we can push, like maybe some?
I don't. There is a bill, and I should have it in front of me, and I don't. That has been introduced, and I'll get it to you. As a matter of fact,
so we can send
hold
it.
on. Maybe I'll get it to you. Let me just make a call and get my staff to give me that number.
Okay, because what we need to do is probably organize to get people, for those that know, in addition.
It's called Saving the Civil Service Act,
Saving the Civil Service Act.
but I don't have the number, but it's
I can
called.
put the information in the chat, Representative.
Okay,
So
Fiona,
if you don't
thank you.
mind, making sure that we could get that to everyone, the chat, we get that to everyone, saving
I'm a
that.
co-sponsor of that. However, I want to be realistic. That has to go through a Republican subcommittee, a Republican committee, through the Republican House, and I don't have a lot of optimism about that, but we're going to fight for it. It was introduced just a few days ago. There's a press conference about it yesterday.
So if everyone could call and actually, we need to do that. So we will send something that everyone needs to organize and push for that. And Congressman, what can we expect? Like, what could be the next, other than this? Is there something in 26 with midterms? Is there something that we can do? What actions can we take to actually protect ourselves? Because at this point, we are all feeling extremely vulnerable right now.
Let me tell you, John Lewis, who was a very dear, as you know, a very close friend of mine and a very dear friend and one of the great members of the Congress of the United States and great leaders of our country and of course, a civil rights icon. He said, if you see something that's not right, not fair, not just, you need to stand up. You need to speak up. You need to speak out. All of us need to speak out. And I want all of you on this call to let your member of Congress, maybe Glenn Ivey, it may be me, it may be others in the Maryland delegation, let AFGE know your story. Let NTU and all the other federal unions know, because we've got to speak out. Attend rallies. Talk to your neighbors and friends about what is happening. They understand when you I don't know whether you heard on the radio, but USAID, it's not, they think they can pick on that agency because it's foreign, it's international dollars going overseas. Less than 1% of our budget does that. And frankly, a lot of other countries do more of their GDP than we do. But having said that, China is trying to woo people by spending money in their countries, in their neighborhoods, and make them think that they're good guys, and we know China is an authoritarian society. But whatever the ultimate outcome of USAID, what's happened to people in Mozambique, for instance, there were 21 people in a school that I happen to know about, whose children were 21 children who were there, whose parents worked for USAID. And they were told, you're no longer on the payroll. You need to stop working and come home. They called the office at USAID, which provides for the travel expenses for families that we've sent over there to come back. And guess what? The office was closed. So we need to tell those kinds of stories and tell, first of all, this is what it means to people when they close that. $363 million was going to farmers in the United States of America. What were they doing? Growing food, which we're one of the great food producers of the world, and giving some assistance to starving people around the world. So we need to tell those stories. Or in your job, whatever your job may be, and I'm speaking now to the federal employees who are on the phone, tell people the effect that your job has on the public, on citizens, on families, on children, on education. You know, tell them those stories, because this is not simply a policy of saying we're going to have 50 employees rather than 100 employees. This is what happens if you take those people and fire them. What happens to the people they were helping, the difference they were making? That's what the American people need to know, because it's clear that Musk and his people they knew exactly what they wanted to do in terms of firing people, and obviously knew very, very little about the consequences that would have for the American people. Let me give you an example, and then I'll shut up. He bought Twitter, now X. He fired 70% of the people. He then hired back 30% because he found out he couldn't run it without some of the people that he had fired initially. He's doing the same thing with the federal government. It's not his toy to be experimenting with and hurting the American people.
Thank you. I just think this is great, Congressman. I would say that it will be also helpful if you can guide us on how we can ensure that the midterms can stop this. If we can help with that, and we're going to be reaching out to other organizations because we cannot do 4 years of this. So thank you so much for your feedback, and we're going to continue with Fiona. And I know you have to get to another thing. You have you're very busy, but we do appreciate your insight.
Well, you're very kind, and I want to thank you. And Fiona, I want to thank you. And as you know, President Kelly is a very good friend of mine. And while President Kelly of AFGE lives in our district, he lives in Charles County, and he's been on the front line, and Fiona has, and so many others have been. I think we're going to win this battle, but it's going to take a little bit of time because we have a president of the United States, with director of OMB, and the richest man in the world, who really don't care whether they're following the law.
Right. Right. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having.
Right.
And
Fiona, thank you, and tell President Kelly I said hello and thank you for what you're doing.
Will do. Thank you so much, Congressman.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Congressman, we do appreciate you. And we're going to continue the discussion. We're going to turn back, Fiona, just going back to you, there's been a lot of questions. One of the questions was, how can people join AFGE as there's a fight going on? They would like to know sort of what's going on, and are there new locals being established? Is there any side that people can get involved with AFGE at this point?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your question. If folks want to get involved with AFGE, I'll put I put my email in the chat, and folks can feel free to email me, and we will get them to the right place to find out more information. I'll also put in the chat a activism tool that we've posted. It's a dashboard called AFGE Strong with opportunities to get involved. And then finally, I'll post an article about the decision just a few minutes ago while we were on this call that a federal judge ordered OPM to rescind directives that initiated the mass firings of probationary employees, ruling that the terminations were probably illegal. So I'll put all three of those in the chat for folks to get involved with AFGE, find out more about the legal cases, and if folks have questions or want to tell their story, they can email me and we'll make sure that they get to the right place.
And Fiona, can you put that to everyone? Because I think the thing that you sent was just to host and panelists. So it needs to go to everyone so that everyone can see it. So other questions, we know that there's been action to make sure that probationary employees are coming back. So is AFGE going to take any actions to try to make sure that there's back pay and things like that? Is that something that you all will be involved with?
Yeah, that's something that we're working on, and happy to get more information on that and make sure that your staff have all the accurate information on detailed information about that.
Okay. And I did want to put that out there because I do know for everyone that a lot of people are seeming to have very much legal questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a follow-up of this with just lawyers so that everyone can get just hear from lawyers, because there was one question about just back pay overall, and we do want to make sure that we answer those appropriately. And so the other questions, I did want you to do just a quick overview of all of the litigation that you all did, just a overview, so you don't have to go into the details, but just some people can actually know what's out there, what you guys did. And we know the first one you mentioned was probationary employees. What's the other ones, the other ones that have been put out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So AFGE is working with several labor unions, nonprofits, and law firms in a number of different cases that I'll go over very briefly. Some of the organizations that I want to let everyone know that we're working with are Democracy Forward, State Democracy Defenders, Public Citizen, Bredhoff and Kaiser, and Lex Lumina. So the first lawsuit is related to DOGE. It's the DOGE Federal Advisory Committee Act case, which was filed on Inauguration Day and challenges DOGE's compliance with the Federal Advisory Committee Act. And since filing, the structure of DOGE has evolved, and the General Counsel's office is evaluating next steps. The second case that I wanted to let everyone know that is happening is related to Schedule F. AFGE and AFSCME filed a lawsuit challenging Trump's executive order reinstating Schedule F, which could reclassify tens of thousands of federal employees into at-will positions. AFGE's challenge focuses on the administration's unilateral rescission of Biden-era regulations limiting Schedule F's scope and protecting employees. Since implementation is not imminent, AFGE has not sought preliminary relief. But if the administration moves closer to enforcement, AFGE may reassess whether or not to do so. The third litigation I want to go over is related to Treasury payment system access. So AFGE challenged the Treasury Department's provision of payment system access to DOGE, citing APA and Privacy Act violations, and initial proceedings persuaded the court to restrict DOGE's access. And a separate suit by the New York Attorney General led to a broader order reinforcing AFGE's position. And a preliminary injunction hearing happened this week, and I can get back to everyone about the status of that after this call. The next case I'd like to go over is related to the Department of Labor and HHS. This case initially sought to block Department of Labor from granting DOGE access to records, but now it's expanded to multiple agencies. And the case argues that the administration violated the Privacy Act and APA by unlawfully disclosing sensitive employee data. And a temporary restraining order was initially obtained, but later denied on standing grounds. And a renewed TRO was also denied, though the judge appeared open to further arguments. And a preliminary injunction motion is currently being briefed, and AFGE anticipates further rulings in the coming weeks. The next lawsuit is the Fork lawsuit, challenging OPM's deferred resignation program on APA grounds as well, and has attracted significant attention. The court initially granted 2 temporary restraining orders delaying the program's end date, but later denied a preliminary injunction request allowing implementation to proceed. And the ruling does not address the program's legality, but focuses on standing and jurisdiction. And AFGE is assessing next steps and whether or not to appeal. The next case is related to USAID. AFGE and AFSA challenged the administration's attempt to dissolve USAID, initially focusing on mass administrative leave assignments. Multiple TROs were secured and a preliminary injunction hearing was held last week with a decision expected soon. And well, I've got a couple more I'm happy to go through, unless you want
Yeah,
me
I mean, I
to.
think everybody would like to know, just a quick overview. We realize that it would be good if you provide us in the next couple of days, maybe a summary thing that we will send out to everyone that
Okay,
so that they would know, because there are some USAID employees, HHS employees. We're looking at the questions, so I'm seeing some of those already here. So I think it's good for them to actually hear what happened, what's going on.
great. Okay, so I'll put that together and make sure that your staff has it to be able to circulate.
Okay. Are you all offering any type of like mental health support for those? Because people are feeling a bit demoralized and anxiety every day as there's new news reports that is just causing chaos in people's households to of the just the fear of not knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so horrible and so sorry about what everyone is going through. And I'm happy to make referrals to those departments and those services. If folks have questions, my email is in the chat and happy to direct folks to those resources.
Okay, but it is, you all do have something like that to help your residents right now. I mean, not residents, oh my God, I'm thinking council member, to help those your members right now, like some sort of mental health support.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay, and also and so we will get that. Can you go over where who are your members? Because Social Security Administration is here and a lot of different agencies are here. So can you go over who your members are?
Yes, so the American Federation of Government Employees represents over 800,000 government workers across the country in over 70 different agencies, including the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Social Security Administration, Department of Agriculture, Transportation Security Administration, the National Endowment for the Arts and Humanities, Environmental Protection Agency, U.S. Customs and Immigration, Bureau of Prisons. We have several different agencies. So happy to put another more comprehensive list together if that would be helpful.
That will be helpful. We don't, AFG does not represent every government worker. I think you all have what, 800,000?
That's correct. We don't represent every single worker, but we do fight on behalf of all the federal workers. The fight that we are pursuing on behalf of all federal workers, but we don't represent all federal workers. That's correct.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this. This is really helpful. I would say that the congressman did mention the act. Can you tell us what you guys are doing on the act that was put in the HR 40 3
492
49,
S134.
Saving
Yes,
the Civil Servant Act? Can you tell us more about that so people can understand how they can be a part of that? Because this is my first time hearing about it, and I'm pretty sure most people on this call have never heard of it.
absolutely. So the Saving the Civil Service Act is to fight against Schedule F, which would create an at-will workforce that could be fired at any moment without Title V rights and without the protection of the union. And it's also a attempt to politicize the workforce instead of hiring folks based on their merit, based on their training and expertise. And so this bill is crucial to our members and to the federal government overall. And AFGE is urging folks to contact their members of Congress asking for support on this bill. And we have talking points and toolkits. So again, if you're interested in getting involved, feel free to send me a message on my email in the chat, and I can send more information on that.
Yeah, and so there are her emails in the chat. So we ask people to just reach out directly to her. There's been people asking about membership. We did see that. Well, how long does it take to sign up at AFGE? What we ask you to do is please direct that question to Fiona. If you didn't get her email, she did put it in there. So everybody should be able to see it and be able to respond directly to her on membership. And we will do, and I will just say this, I want to apologize because some of the things is that it's so much going on that we just realize what people need, and we do recognize that people do need a legal group. So what we're going to do is, I was a labor lawyer for 10 years, and so some of these questions I actually can answer, but I will say that I would rather somebody directly in the fight to answer them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to my AFL-CIO coordinating committee of lawyers and get them to come and speak to you all to let you know about what you can do. And now, Fiona, thank you so much for this. You were very helpful and very patient, and we do appreciate you. She's put her name in the chat, and we will actually, what we're going to do is we're going to send something out when she gives the information for us. We're going to send it out to everybody that responded. So if you signed up, you should receive the information that we're going to send out, which will be comprehensive and provide you with as much information. I want to make sure we have Health Connect come on, and I'm going to bring her up because she can provide us with some information of what can be provided by our government. So and I want to make sure that I say your name correctly. Tekeyah.
Yes, ma'am. It is Tekeyah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for offering to provide information.
No problem. I definitely want to do this and then hearing all this amazing work that you all are doing. So I'm very excited. So my name is Tekeyah Threat. I am the Affordable Care Act Program Manager for the Prince George's County region. And so I do work under Maryland Health Connection, even though I am a part of Department of Social Services. And I wanted to, am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share
Okay.
your screen. Do you see share?
Yes, I have the option. I just wanted to, make sure it was okay with you all. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry. Let's stop share for 1 second. I just bought this computer and is asking for a subscription that I will not be getting. Yes. And it'll be a very brief presentation. I'm not going to go through all the slides. However, I just wanted to highlight a few. Here we back up. We can share. And can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so Maryland Health Connection actually came up with this PowerPoint for me to present tonight. So I just wanted to go over some key slides. All right, so am I eligible to apply? To be eligible for health insurance through Maryland Health Connection. And sorry, let's start this up. Uh-oh. Sorry for that. Okay. You must live in Maryland, be a U.S. citizen, or be lawfully present, not be incarcerated except if you are incarcerated pending disposition. Additional notes, any individual over the age of 19 must be lawfully present for 5 years before they are eligible for Medicaid. If an individual is offered insurance by an employer deemed affordable by the state's 8.5% rule, the family may now be eligible to receive financial assistance towards a plan on Maryland Health Connection. So this is what the current chart effective of March, this is what this for the Medicaid monthly income requirements. All right, so loss of job-based coverage qualifies you for special enrollment. So we do have what's called open enrollment that's from November the 1st through January the 15th. However, outside of that, there are certain times when people can still join. So after you lose job-based coverage, you have 60 days to apply for coverage on Maryland Health Connection if you're not enrolled in COBRA. You can estimate the cost and benefits of Maryland Health Connection coverage to COBRA. So they have this link, and that's also on the Maryland Health Connection website, which is basically the Get Estimate tool that'll help you figure out how much your premium would be if you were to get insurance through Maryland Health Connection. And if you obviously don't have any income, then it'll be for Medicaid, but it's also, dependent on the whole household income, not just yours particularly. So they also have the young adult premium assistance for some health plans. Young adults ages 18 through 37 may be able to receive health paying for their monthly health insurance costs, thanks to a new state program. So this is Prince George's County down here, and this is examples of the young adult premium assistance. So the monthly payments, let's say for a 30-year-old, 138.10, if their income is 69,500, and that's the lowest gold plan. So things that are covered under the insurance is free preventative services, doctor visits, hospitalization, emergency care, maternity and newborn care, pediatric care, including dental and vision benefits, birth control, prescription drugs, laboratory tests, mental health care, substance use disorder treatment, and more. So when you're ready to enroll, you'll just have to have your photo ID. For some residents, you also have to have your immigration or citizenship information, the employer and income information like your pay stubs or W-2s and tax statement, policy numbers for any other insurance that you have, and information about any job-related health insurance available to your family. And then just lastly, I wanted to kind of bring up one of our flyers, that shows our locations. All of our locations are at the Department of Social Services, but we also have a call center, if I can scroll up, which is the 301-927-4500, or you can call 240-719-2167. And we also, you don't have to come into the office. We can enroll you over the phone, and that's Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you have any questions, you can always go to our website, the pgchealthconnect.org. And this also just, again, lists all of the different information that you would need to bring if you were interested in getting health insurance. All right.
All right, this is great. Well, thank you so much for providing that. Do you mind putting some information in the chat so that people can snatch it up? And we will send a presentation. People ask they want a copy of the presentation, so we'll try to see if we can send a link to the presentation to everyone that's on the call. Now, for those who were laid off, this will be very helpful information. So thank you so much, Tekeyah, for joining us today. And you have anything else before we start to close out?
No, that is it for me. I'm going to plug in our call center number and our
Okay.
hours of operations in the chat now.
Okay, thank you so much. So thank you all so much for coming on today. I know there's a lot of more burning questions. The follow-up is that put the link, if you all don't put the link in the chat. If you live in Prince George's County, primarily in my district, and you would like to get support, we will be sending out resources. We do have nonprofits that we are going to follow up with and that are interested in supporting you. And so if you've been laid off, fill out the form and we will figure out a way to do it. But we do have our nonprofits waiting, and we will start calling people by early next week to confirm information, and we will start to provide support, whether it's groceries, food. Walter Simmons wasn't able to come on tonight, but we also are going to be working with him because we're trying to get an actual job fair for federal workers who've been laid off. So we're doing that. In addition, I do also have a bill that's going to be coming forth in the council that will provide short support. We are facing a budget crisis, so it's not going to be a whole lot that would take that will be overwhelming. But we do at this point realize that our federal workforce is really important. So we are going to be providing some support at the county level. I do hope to get the support of my colleagues for this, because I do believe this is an emergency and something needs to be done now to assist. So so we are trying to do what we can. We will continue this series. This was the first one, but the next one will be with some labor lawyers. We realized that a lot of the questions that we saw in the chat were very much directly related to what happens with severance. If you know, severance is actually outlined specifically in the code, and there's only certain things that you can do to even use that. It's actually outlined. So we want somebody to go over severance, over what happens if you're RIF, over the Fair Labor, FLRA, NLRB, well, it's mostly FLRA for federal workers, the MSPB, Merit Service Protection Board, what those processes and things like that. So we actually just get on our listserv and we will do a follow-up on all of these issues. Because we do realize that I do think the issue is the anxiety is lack of information, and we get it. And I myself am learning things about this. And so I'm literally calling people asking like what's going on. So I know if I don't know, you won't know. So we're putting as much as we can together. And we do ask people to follow up with AFGE, become a member if you have not. One thing about the federal government is like a union can do all this work and you don't have to pay the dues. So we ask you to pay the dues, support them because they are supporting you right now. So thank you all so much for coming on tonight. We hope we were able to get as many questions answered. We did go through, I've been stuck in the question and answer. Devin, do you see anything that we missed that we need to do right now? I think
No, I think for the most part, I think we pretty much summarized, and then we will follow up on the additional questions. Just some of the questions were very legalistic, and I think us bringing the lawyers on board would be very helpful for some of these concerns to help many of our constituents. So I think you did a great job explaining that.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for coming on today. I will be ending this meeting and we will follow up with our thing. And did we make sure, Marie Claire, did we put in the chat to sign up for anybody who's been laid?
Yes, who's been laid off?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And I was going to also make sure that we share our newsletter for people.
Right.
If you are not on our newsletter, I want to make sure that you have the link to be able to sign up to that as well. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you all so much for coming out and joining us today. We do recognize some people are joining us from YouTube. Please email us at councildistrict6@co.pg.md.us if you have a question. We did get some people emailing us about that, and we are going to forward your information to the AFGE if you weren't exactly on the chat within the Zoom chat. So we recognize that we weren't active in the YouTube chat, so we will send the information to you if you email us, and I'm going to put that in the chat on YouTube. If we could put on YouTube all of the information that we posted in so people can grab it from the YouTube. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, and everyone have a good night.